Tehran, July 31, 2024. The city's elite slept under the vigilant eyes of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, while inside an IRGC-run guest house, one of Hamas's most powerful figures, Ismael Haniyeh, prepared to rest. No one suspected that hidden within those very walls was a silent assassin, waiting patiently for its target. At exactly 1:30 a.m., the calm of the Iranian night erupted into fire and chaos. Haniyeh was dead. And almost immediately, whispers spread across the globe. This wasn't an accident. This was Mossad. But how exactly did they manage to reach Mossad, the most guarded compound in Tehran, and eliminate a man who was supposed to be untouchable? Keep watching, because this is the story of meticulous planning, secret betrayals, and a strike that sent shockwaves through the Middle East. So why did Mossad go after Ismael Haniyeh, and why all the way inside Iran? Let's break it down. Haniyeh wasn't just another politician. Born in a refugee camp in Gaza in 1962, he worked his way up the ranks of Hamas until he became the third chairman of the Hamas Political Bureau in 1962-2017. But here's the key. He wasn't only making speeches. He was the man who built and protected Hamas' biggest outside alliance, their partnership with Iran. Through Haniyeh, Hamas secured massive financial aid, weapons shipments, and military training from Tehran. We're talking about the money for rocket programs, the technology for tunnels, and even battlefield coordination with Hezbollah. For Iran, Haniyeh was a reliable partner who helped expand its influence in Gaza and kept pressure on Israel. For Israel, that made him a direct threat, because every dollar and every weapon funneled through Haniyeh eventually came back in the form of rockets fired at Israeli cities. So when Mossad targeted him, it wasn't just personal revenge. It was a strategic strike to weaken Hamas' lifeline to Iran. Mossad only had one rule: neutralize threats before they grow bigger. For them, taking him out wasn't just an operation. It was a warning, broadcast across the Middle East. Tehran has long been a safe haven for leaders of Iran's allied groups, from Hamas to Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad. The city is considered one of the most secure places in the Middle East, heavily guarded by the Revolutionary Guard and layered with intelligence networks. Foreign leaders staying in Tehran are placed in IRGC-run guest houses, where movement is restricted and protection is supposed to be airtight. For Haniyeh, traveling from war-torn Gaza to the capital of Iran felt like stepping into a fortress. And that's why his assassination here was so shocking. If Mossad could penetrate this web of security and kill a man inside an IRGC guest house, it meant Iran's promise of safety was nothing but an illusion. It wasn't just a loss for Hamas. It was an embarrassment for Iran, right on its own doorstep. On July 31st, Hamas political chief Ismael Haniyeh arrived in Tehran, invited to attend the swearing-in of Iran's new president, Masoud Pezeshkian. For Hamas, this was more than just a political trip. It was a show of strength. For Iran, Haniyeh wasn't simply attending an event. He was embraced as a key ally. In fact, just hours before his death, he held a meeting with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. That handshake was proof of how deeply Iran valued him and the role he played in cementing ties between Tehran and Hamas. But by dawn the next day, Haniyeh was gone. Hamas quickly announced that he and one of his bodyguards had been killed in what they called a treacherous Zionist strike. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps backed that story, saying, "A short-range projectile carrying about 7 kilograms of explosive materials launched from outside the building where he was staying." But then another version emerged. Investigations by the New York Times and other outlets revealed a very different picture. A remote-controlled bomb had been hidden in Haniyeh's own guest room months earlier, smuggled in with the help of insiders working secretly against them. That device was triggered the moment Mossad confirmed Haniyeh was inside. It wasn't an airstrike. It wasn't a missile. It was a bomb waiting patiently in the walls of his supposed safe house. Haniyeh was 62 years old when he died. The very next day, on August 1st, a funeral was held in Tehran. And not just any funeral. Khamenei himself led the prayers, underlining how much of a blow this was to Iran's prestige. The body was then flown to Qatar, where Haniyeh was buried in Lusail. Haniyeh's death ignited outrage from Tehran to Gaza. Hamas' armed wing warned the attack would take the battle to new dimensions. Iran promised harsh punishment. The entire axis of resistance, Hamas, Hezbollah, and their Iranian backers, vowed revenge. Tehran even accused Washington of sharing responsibility, pointing to American support for Israel's war in Gaza. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, speaking from Singapore, quickly denied any involvement, saying the U.S. had no prior knowledge of the hit. The timing was no accident either. Just a day before, on July 30th, an Israeli airstrike in Beirut killed Fuad Sukur, a senior Hezbollah commander linked to a deadly rocket attack on the Druze town of Maidal Shams in the Golan Heights. That strike had killed 12 children and teenagers, and Israel wasted no time hitting back. Almost simultaneously, the U.S. carried out its own airstrike in Iraq, targeting Iranian-backed armed groups preparing attacks on American forces. The Middle East was already on fire, and Haniyeh's assassination poured gasoline on the flames. For Haniyeh himself, danger was nothing new. He had survived an assassination attempt back in 2003 when Israel tried to eliminate him alongside Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the founder of Hamas. But his family paid a steep price in 2024. 3 of his sons, Hazem, Amir, and Mohammed, were killed in an Israeli airstrike in northern Gaza. His deputy, Saleh al-Aruri, was assassinated in January. And in June, his sister and her family were killed in another strike. Haniyeh lived with a target on his back. In the end, Mossad got him in the one place he thought was untouchable, Tehran. It's important to remember Haniyeh wasn't just a Hamas figurehead. He was a symbol of the Hamas-Iran partnership. Back in 2020, he had stood in Tehran at the funeral of General Qasem Soleimani, praising the late commander for transforming Palestinian resistance through Iranian training and weapons. After Soleimani's death, Haniyeh maintained close ties with his successor, Ismail Haniyeh, ensuring Hamas remained a cornerstone of Iran's regional strategy. And perhaps most critically, Haniyeh was a negotiator. At the time of his death, he was deeply involved in mediation talks with Israel, Egypt, Qatar, and the U.S. over the Gaza war and the release of Israeli hostages taken during Hamas' October 7th attack. Qatar's prime minister publicly warned that assassinating the very man negotiating on Hamas's behalf could derail the entire process. In his words, how can mediation succeed when one party assassinates the negotiator on the other side? So Haniyeh's death wasn't just another assassination. It was a strike that caused many layers of impact. A blow to Hamas's political leadership, a humiliation for Iran's security services, a shock to ongoing hostage negotiations, and a message to the entire region. A man who once survived an airstrike in Gaza, buried his sons in 2024, and shook hands with Iran's supreme leader only hours before, was ultimately killed not on the battlefield, but in the supposed safety of a guarded guest house in Tehran. Mossad had once again proven that no one is truly safe. One move had changed the rules of the game, leaving fear, anger, and uncertainty in its wake. Ismael Haniyeh's death is a harsh reminder that in the shadowy world of espionage, power is fleeting and trust is fragile. So what do you think? Was this assassination a brilliant strategic move or a risky gamble that would someday backfire on Israel? Tell us in the comments below. If you want more stories from the hidden shadows of the covert world, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe, because in the world of spies, there's always more to uncover.